She was 7 years old when something in the basement started riding her toy horse. The batteries had been removed years before. What you're about to hear is not a campfire story. It is not a movie. It is the real account of a woman who grew up inside a house that should have never been lived in a quiet neighborhood in Indiana, where the realtor's warning on day one was ignored, and everything that followed was the consequence. Welcome to Temple of Terrors. In the fall of 1996, a young couple in central Indiana made an offer on a single-level ranch-style home built in 1954. It sat on a wide residential street, mature trees lining the sidewalk, a massive three-tiered backyard that sloped gently down toward a tree line. From the outside, it looked like the kind of house you raise a family in. They walked through every room with their realtor, the living room, the kitchen, the bedrooms, and then the basement. The moment they stepped down those stairs, the realtor stopped. She turned to them and she pointed at a framed picture hanging on the basement wall, a painting of a red barn standing alone in an open field. She looked them both in the eyes and said, "Do not take that picture down. Do not move it. If you do, things will happen in this house." The couple exchanged a glance. They loved the house. They bought it anyway. They left the picture where it was, and things happened anyway. The woman who shared this story online goes by Spooky Nat. She posted it on the subreddit r/Ghoststories just a few days ago, and from the moment I read it, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not because it's dramatic, not because it's over the top, but because of how ordinary it all started. For the purposes of this narration, we'll call her Madison Calloway, 26 years old, from a mid-sized town in Indiana. She didn't grow up in a Gothic mansion. She didn't live near a cemetery. She grew up in a regular neighborhood house with a breezeway, a laundry room, a family, and a basement that never quite felt empty. Madison was 3 years old the first time she mentioned him. She walked up to her mother one afternoon and said in that completely matter-of-fact way that only small children can, "Mommy, can I go play with the little boy in the basement? His mom won't let him come out." Her mother told her there was no little boy in the basement. Madison accepted that answer, but she kept asking. Children that age don't fabricate playmates in basements. They invent friends on playgrounds, in bedrooms, in imaginary worlds with light, not in dark rooms underground, not children who can't come out. Madison and her 2 older sisters grew up spending a lot of time in that basement. It had a bar area with empty old beer bottles the girls would use to play bartender, a large open living space, a non-functional half-bathroom, a storage room in the back that nobody went into unless they had to. On the surface, it was a normal childhood space, but Madison says no matter how many times she went down there, no matter how loud they played, how brightly the lights were on, how much her sisters were laughing nearby, she always felt like something was watching. Not from the corners, not from the shadows, from somewhere she couldn't see. Now let's talk about Pete. Pete lived directly across the street. He was in his late 70s, maybe 80s. His wife had passed. He lived alone, and almost immediately after the Calloway family moved in, Pete started letting himself into their home. He would walk through the breezeway door unannounced and leave Aldi grocery bags full of canned food sitting on the deep freezer just inside the entrance. He did this because he believed, for reasons no one could explain, that Madison's parents weren't feeding their children. They were. The children were healthy, well-fed, cared for. But Pete kept coming every week, walking into a home that was not his, leaving food as if he were watching over children who needed saving. Madison's father would pick up those bags every single time and walk them right back across the street, but Pete always came back. Madison was still 3, maybe 4 years old. It was a regular afternoon. Her family had just returned home, and Madison, the way toddlers often do, had slipped out of her clothes the moment she got inside. There was a knock at the door, and Madison answered it. Pete was standing there. He looked down at this small, unclothed child, and instead of stepping back, he took her hand and he started walking her down the backyard. The yard stretched 3 levels down, all the way to the woods at the bottom. Madison's father happened to glance out the window at that exact moment. He saw Pete. He saw his 3-year-old daughter. He saw the direction they were walking, toward the trees. He sent Madison's older sister, who was 5 or 6 herself, running down the yard to get her back. Her sister had to hit Pete to make him let go. Madison says she still thinks about it. What would have happened if no one had looked out that window, if no one had seen?
A restraining order was eventually filed. Pete stayed on his side of the street, but he'd still find ways to provoke Madison's father from a distance, walking to the edge of the road when the lawnmower was running, watching, always watching. And then one night a severe thunderstorm rolled through Indiana. Lightning, heavy rain, the kind of storm that rattles windows and kills the power. The next morning, Pete was found dead in the garden behind his house. He'd been outside during the storm. He had a pacemaker. It stopped. A new family moved in within a couple of months. Their daughter became Madison's friend, and one day her mother sat down with Madison's parents and told them what they'd discovered inside Pete's house. There was no toilet in the bathroom, just a hole in the floor. In every corner of every room, pennies placed deliberately. The basement door had been fitted with at least 8 deadbolt locks from the inside. 8 locks on a basement door. Whatever Pete was afraid of getting out, he made absolutely certain it stayed down there. If you're listening to this right now and you haven't already, subscribe to Temple of Terrors, because the stories we tell here are real, and some of them don't stay on the screen. Madison and her sister were responsible kids. At 11 and 7, they were getting themselves up for school, locking the house behind them, and coming home to an empty house every afternoon. Their parents worked long hours, and for a while after Pete's death, things had gone quiet, until they didn't. 3 times within 6 months of Pete dying, Madison and her sister came home from school to find the front door standing wide open, every light in the house burning, all of them, kitchen, hallway, bedrooms, the basement. They never went in alone. They always walked next door to the elderly couple
Sheila and Harold, and waited for their adult son to come over and clear the house first. He never found anyone inside. Nothing was missing, nothing was moved. The house was just awake, lit up, waiting. Eventually, Madison's parents separated. Her father moved out. Her mother started spending nights at her boyfriend's house, and the house on Birchwood Lane got very, very quiet. That's when it escalated. One evening, Madison's oldest sister was doing laundry. She brought a new bottle of laundry detergent down to the basement and set it on top of the dryer, sealed, unopened. She came back down a little while later to switch the load. The bottle was pouring out onto the basement floor.
The plastic seal, the factory seal across the top, had been ripped off. It was sitting on the floor 10 feet away. The cap had been carefully unscrewed and placed upright, perfectly balanced on the concrete. Not knocked over, not cracked, placed like someone had taken their time, like someone had wanted them to know it wasn't an accident. After that night, Madison was terrified of the basement, but mornings before school meant going down alone to get clean clothes from the dryer. One morning it felt different, heavier than usual. That particular kind of silence that isn't quite silence, where the air itself seems to be holding its breath. Madison moved quickly through the basement, pulling clothes from the dryer, trying not to look at the back room, trying not to feel the thing she always felt down there. That's when she heard it, the sound of a child's toy. A riding horse, the kind you sit on and bounce. It would play a galloping song when the motion sensors activated. Her parents had taken the batteries out years ago. They had moved it to the basement. It started moving, back and forth, like someone was sitting on it, and the song started playing. Madison grabbed her clothes. She ran up the stairs. She never went into that basement alone again. A couple of weeks later, it was her sister's turn. She'd turned her fan on, gotten into bed, and in the stillness of the room, beneath the white noise of the fan, she heard footsteps coming from inside her closet. Heavy, deliberate, like work boots on hardwood. She told herself it was the house settling. Old houses make noise. But it didn't stop. And then the closet door opened by itself, slow. She ran across the hallway into her mother's room. She slept there for several nights after that. Madison's mother had her own encounters that final month before the house went on the market. One afternoon, while Madison and her sister were at their father's house, their mother was alone. She saw a man walk past her bedroom doorway, clearly. A human silhouette moving down the hall. She called out, checked every room. No one was there. Later that same day, she was in the basement cleaning, and from the top of the stairs she heard a voice call her. Her mother's voice, her own mother calling for her the way she always had. Sandy. She called back, "I'm in the basement." Nothing. She went upstairs, looked out the window. Her parents' car wasn't in the driveway. She called her mother. "Mom, why did you leave? I was in the basement." Her mother said, "Honey, we're still 10 minutes away."
There is 1 week before the move. Madison comes home from school and goes to take a shower. Her grandmother is in the house watching her baby brother. She gets in the shower. A knock on the bathroom door. The door opens. Her grandmother's voice says, "It's Grandma. I need to use the bathroom." Through the frosted shower curtain, Madison watches the shape of a woman walk in, cross to the wall opposite the shower, and stand there, facing the curtain, facing her, for a full minute, and then it left. When Madison got out, she found her grandmother in the kitchen. "Grandma, why did you come into the bathroom?" Her grandmother looked up. "I didn't go in the bathroom, sweetheart." The weekend before they moved out, Father's Day, Madison and her sister and a friend were at the house alone. The front door opened to the warm evening air. Their friend was sitting just outside the door at the top of the basement stairs, talking on the phone. She came running into the house screaming, tears shaking, pure terror on her face. "There's a woman singing in the basement." The 3 of them ran into the backyard. Madison and her sister inched back toward the door that opened near the top of the basement stairs. They cracked it open just enough, and they listened. A woman was singing from somewhere below them in that dark, familiar basement. A voice they didn't recognize, a song they couldn't make out, just singing, alone in the dark. They moved out the following weekend. Madison says nothing like that has ever happened since. But I keep thinking about that basement, about a realtor who felt the need to warn a young couple about a painting on their very first day, about a little girl asking to go play with the boy whose mother wouldn't let him out, about a dead man and 8 deadbolts and pennies in every corner, about a toy horse with no batteries rocking back and forth in an empty room. Whatever was in that house had been there long before that family arrived, and when they left, it stayed, waiting for the next family, the next children, the next little girl who forgets to latch her door at night. If you made it to the end of this story, you already know this channel is different. We don't exaggerate. We don't perform. We find the stories that feel too real to dismiss. Subscribe to Temple of Terrors, because somewhere out there right now, someone is moving into a house, and the realtor is pointing at something on the wall. And they're not listening. They never do.